started.
I think most people that registered are here now, Brian. I'm just going to go check, but I think you're good to go.
So Paul, do you want to put up the budget of the regional council?
Yes. Here we go. Oh, sorry, it's the French. Excuse me.
That's quite all right.
Yeah, true.
Some of us don't mind.
Florence parle pas l'anglais, je pense.
Oh, I can switch back and forth too, so if you like.
Je pense
And-
que c'est à peu près moitié-moitié. So
I'm not sure if the way to start this would be just to show you what was the budget for 2024. And that's where the total revenue was like 1.1 million. And total expenses were 1.2 million, roughly. So there was a budget of a deficit of 64,000. I'm not sure. Est-ce que quelqu'un veut expliquer en français juste ce que j'ai dit? C'est nécessaire pour Florence?
Je peux l'expliquer rapidement, Paul, si tu veux.
D'accord.
Essentiellement, l'année dernière, on avait un budget où les revenus étaient 1,1 million de dollars et les dépenses étaient de 1,2 million. Alors, il y avait un déficit prévu de 63 000.
And then what happened during the year was that David Roger Gagnon, who was in the salaries of mission and ministry, where we had budgeted 180,000 for salaries and 56,000 for benefits and things.
Can we please?
So we have somebody who's,
Yes, please. Can we shut that down? It's very noisy.
I think David.
I'm going to
Wright
mute
may-
everybody except Paul.
I'm sorry?
I said I'm going to mute everybody else except you, Paul.
Oh, okay,
And
very
if people need to ask questions, they can unmute themselves.
good. Okay. No? Okay, so in the budget for 2024, there was 181,000 budgeted for the youth worker and congregation, the networks and clusters minister, and 56,000 for benefits. But then David Roger Gagnon left beginning of September. So that reduced our expected expenditure for staff by 30,000 on salaries and another 11,000 on benefits. So this resulted in an expected deficit of around 20,000 for 2024.
Alors, la majorité des dépenses était au niveau du salaire et étant donné que David Roger a quitté son emploi au début septembre, il y a eu essentiellement, on a été chercher de l'argent à cause de ça qui nous a rendu maintenant à un déficit de plutôt vers 20 000 $.
So when we were then looking at the budget for 2025, I, as a feeling that we wanted to be fiscally responsible, said that we really should not have a deficit at all. And in addition to what we have for the estimated for 2024, we have salary increases for 2025 for all the staff. But the revenue from the General Counsel office remained the same. So you can see here the 392,000 and 392,000 for revenue. But the expenses were going to go up for staff from a budgeted certain level up to a higher level because of the increase in the salaries. Go ahead, Eric.
Alors, les salaires ont augmenté pour le personnel. À partir de 2025, il y a une augmentation de 2,5% pour les employés. Mais le montant qui arrive du Conseil général demeure le même. Alors, Paul essaie autant que possible d'essayer de trouver un moyen pour qu'on ne soit pas dans un déficit du tout pour l'année prochaine.
And we looked at ways to reduce expenses, but there are not ways to reduce expenses because these are the things that the region does. And as Eric points out, it is not very wise to say we should cut back on particular staff expenses because those staff expenses, whether they're in for the existing people or for a new person called the Congregation Support Minister, these are necessary. So we have a challenge, and this is what the Budget Committee was facing. What do we do when we have expenses that were going to result in a large deficit, but we don't want to have a large deficit? So this is when Peter Bissett, who is from the Finance and Extension Board, and Fred Brayman, the chair of the Finance Committee of the Finance and Extension Board, which is also part of the region, said that what we should do is really look at revenues. And here you can see, before, I have nothing here for estimated actual, but for 2025, we have two additional sources of revenue. One is from the Finance and Extension Board, where the Finance and Extension Board would make another $31,000 available. And the second part was to come from the Strategic Fund. The Strategic Fund was set up for strategic purposes, and let's face it, having somebody to look at the staff part, the congregational support, is a very much strategic necessity. Go ahead, Eric.
Alors, étant donné qu'il n'y a pas beaucoup de place où on peut couper dans les dépenses, on a regardé le revenu et puis le comité des finances
Extension.
C'est extension?
Expansion.
Expansion. Finance et expansion a décidé qu'elle pouvait, pour 2025, offrir un financement supplémentaire en partie pour l'année qui donnera un autre 31 000 $ en tout. Et qu'il y a un fonds stratégique qui a été créé pour le Conseil régional. Et puis, étant donné que le personnel, surtout si on va se rendre au point où on va remplacer David Roger avec un poste qui est plutôt au niveau de l'appui au ministère, qui est complètement en lien avec le plan stratégique, ça va de l'allure d'imaginer que le fonds stratégique pourrait financer une partie de ce travail-là. C'était complètement naturel d'imaginer qu'un est lié à l'autre.
And the result from that, we're looking here at a revenue for the budget of $1,260,000 and expenses of $1,260,000. So in effect, we are budgeting for no deficit for 2025. Go ahead, Eric.
Qui nous retrouvera avec un budget équilibré pour 2025 parce que le montant du revenu et les dépenses seront égales.
So I guess that is the essence of the presentation on the budget. I could go into more details because I have all of the details here and you've seen them, but they're not really not much as the way of changes. The only other possible change is here when we look at rent for the building where the region is right now in Lachine. because the expires the end of June. And it's very possible that modifications can be made there to reduce the cost. Go ahead, Eric.
Alors, il y a une autre place où il y a possibilité de réduire les dépenses, c'est au niveau du loyer, parce que le loyer pour le Conseil régional, le bail prend sa fin à la fin du mois de juin. Alors, il y a pas cette possibilité là aussi de réduire le montant de dépenses. Paul, I wonder if you'd like me to say a little bit about the position, the new job description for the David Roger position at this
Perfect.
time.
Yes, excellent. Thank you.
So the position that we're looking at is called the congregational support minister, and congregational support ministers are essentially positions that are not uncommon in other regional councils. And what they do is they accompany congregations and communities of faith that are imagining or need to help visioning or rethinking their ministry. So you come and help alongside of that. And they would also be working very, very closely with the emerging ministries in helping them to be accompanied in getting to know the United Church and taking the steps necessary to become a congregation, like finding charitable status and getting to know the polity of the United Church, etc. And helping to identify barriers for them that can be overcome as well. So because we have a number of emerging ministries in the regional council, this is a possibility of support directly to them as well. So that's part of the idea of what that position would look like. Alors, le nouveau poste sera vraiment d'appui au niveau des paroisses et des communautés de foi. Pour ceux qui existent déjà, pour les aider à réimaginer et être capables d'être accompagnés dans un renouvellement de leur ministère. Et en même temps, d'offrir de l'appui aux nouveaux ministères ou aux ministères en développement pour les accompagner dans le processus de comprendre c'est quoi l'Église unie, qu'est-ce qu'on a besoin de mettre en place, Conseil et tout ça. Et puis, ça serait vraiment de mettre l'accent là-dessus. When it comes to staff support for clusters and leadership teams, there would be some support that would be coming out of that position. It would be probably more basic support in terms of what would be offered, in the hopes that that a number of those teams would have leadership that would in fact sort of keep them moving. But the idea is to really put a higher priority on the accompaniment of ministry. And I think the idea here is too is if you think that we have Dan Hayward, who's on the call here, who's who would be looking after the pastoral relations piece in the sense that this is about supporting ministry personnel. And this position would be the one supporting communities of faith. So the idea being that both of those have their own dedicated support in that process. And oui, alors, I think I said it in French. Oui, essentiellement, au niveau de l'appui, au niveau des réseaux et puis des équipes qui existent au niveau du Conseil régional, qu'il y aura un appui de base, mais l'emphase sera vraiment sur l'appui aux communautés de foi. Pour que Dan puisse être la personne qui s'occupe du personnel ministériel et que la nouvelle personne pourra s'occuper directement des communautés de foi.
Okay. Are there other questions? That was an excellent question too. Are there other questions? Oh, sorry, you'll have to give the permission to unmute now.
Paul, I'm wondering, the strategic fund, can you just remind me of how much money is sort of the capital of that fund and what is the drawdown a year? So what will the impact of taking this money into the annual budget be?
Okay, let me just go here. The strategic fund if you're looking here, it is right now is at 854,000, as of October. We're very close to selling the Granby Church, and 10% of that sale will go towards the strategic fund. And we have, I think, another couple of sales that are coming up as well. So I can see this fund being over $1 million sometime during this year, if not higher. So the $60,000 does make a dent, but not a huge dent in the amount available.
Alors, au niveau du fonds stratégique, elle est financée surtout de la vente d'églises. Un 10% de la vente de toutes les églises rentre dans le fonds stratégique. Et puis, le fonds stratégique, lui, a actuellement 854 000 et on croit que possiblement par la fin de l'année, que ce fonds-là aura plus qu'1 million de dollars. Alors, le 60 000 qui sera contribué pour appuyer le fonds, le budget du Conseil régional ne nuira pas beaucoup à ce fonds-là. And there's interest as well, obviously, that fund will be accruing over time.
Oh, yeah.
I would assume also.
Yes, if the markets help out as they have been so far, yes.
And the terms of reference allow for a distribution of 6% of the value of the fund annually.
Thanks, Paul.
Oh, okay, welcome. Thank you, David.
Lisa, I noticed you had your microphone opened at one point, but maybe we've answered the question already. Yes? Okay.
One of the things I did put together, and this was from the minutes from the granting and enablement leadership team, was a list of all the grants that were made in 2024. And I think, Judy, is this one of the ones that you've got in the in that whole pile of documents? I don't know how many people had a chance to look at that, but there really is quite a variety of grants, ranging from the spiritual to the secular. And I would hope that other people will look at that and see that the region is trying to do stuff and is trying to listen to a large number of interests across the whole province.
Alors, il y a eu une bonne liste qui a été fournie qui parle des différentes manières qu'il y a eu des déboursements au niveau des fonds qui existent pour l'Église unie, qui ont été remis. Alors ça fait partie des documents aussi. Et Florence, je pense que tu as ta main levée aussi. Alors, si tu as des questions.
Oui, je voulais juste te poser la question parce que je ne comprends pas bien comment lorsque David Roger était là et qu'il était salarié, et avec sa présence, le déficit n'était pas très élevé et que avec son absence, donc ça dit qu'il n'y a plus de salaire pour le moment pour ce poste et le salaire et le déficit est élevé. Je ne comprends pas.
Parce qu'il y avait eu un déficit. Oui, il y avait eu un déficit de 60 000 qui était prévu avec son salaire pour toute l'année et ça a diminué à presque 20 000 pour la fin de l'année. Alors, on prévoit juste un déficit de 20 000 cette année-ci. Et pour l'année prochaine, les salaires augmentent à cause de l'inflation, c'est prévu. Et puis, on prévoit aussi avoir remplacé David Roger avec un salarié. Alors, on devrait être de retour au niveau des salaires l'année prochaine. Alors, on prévoit être équilibré avec les nouvelles sources de revenus qui vont rentrer.
Ah, OK. Merci.
Et je pense que tu es en train de chercher quelqu'un maintenant.
J'ai presque fini la description de tâche pour le poste, alors je l'amène à l'exécutif pour qu'on puisse commencer l'embauche. Oui.
Oh, bon, c'est très bon.
So I'll be bringing the job description for that position to the next executive meeting, and so that we can actually start looking for that position.
Oh, great.
And as some of you may know, I may be bringing a second job description as well, because Judy has announced that she's retiring at the end of December.
Yes. Hey.
I'll miss you all, but I'll be making quilts and visiting my grandchildren.
Oh. You could chat with Rosemary, and I think that'd be some of the similar things that you'll be both doing now.
I'm holding on for dear life to Brian and Dan right now. So.
Yeah, the timing is not ideal.
So are we going to look at the F&E budget as well, or just the regional council?
If you like, I can do the F&E.
Yeah, maybe quickly.
And I'm just going to mention too, Paul had also, and Brian had prepared some graphs for those that don't like looking at lines of numbers. It helps sort of just show the easy division of how things are split up and where things have changed. So juste pour dire qu'il y a aussi des graphiques qui sont dans le paquet d'informations pour les gens qui n'aiment pas tellement regarder toutes les lignes de texte. Sont là pour vous.
Okay. That's the graphs. Okay, and here is. Okay. Oh yeah, it works better if I actually click it open though. Yeah, apologies for that. I just wanted to make sure I got it neatly here. The Finance and Extension Board budget really is really quite straightforward because basically we have about 15 million available, and of that we spend 5%, make that 5% available to cover some operating expenses, and the rest goes to the region.
Sorry, Paul, can you make that a little bit bigger, please?
Oh yeah, sure.
Thanks. Woohoo!
Okay. There we go. Well, we have 15 million roughly. This is the average of 8 quarters, and that's including the amount that's in the Fiera Capital, our endowment fund, plus some loans that are earning 5% interest and a bit of cash. So we take 5% of that, we come up with about $755,000 available. And as you can see, that has actually grown nicely. And the reason for that growing is thanks to Fiera Capital. Not Fiera Capital, I mean their investment policy. It's thanks to the market. So we started off at 725,000, and now we're up to 755. And the nice thing about that means that there's more money available. And where that money is going mainly, first of all, because of the increased grants to the Montreal City Mission and St. Columba House, where before they were getting roughly 142,000, and now they're getting 150,000. The Finance and Extension Board said, well, we want to make sure that there's still the same amount of money available for the other mission support grants. So we went from 505,000 for mission support to 523,000. And then on top of that, the 31,000 that I mentioned being available for strategic purposes. So what happens now is that the funds to be dispersed are roughly the same, as you can see, as the amount that is available for disbursement. Is that okay, Eric?
Yeah, let me give that a run. Alors, ce qu'on regarde maintenant, c'est le budget du Conseil des finances et d'expansion. Alors, ça, c'est l'entité qui retient pour l'instant 15 millions de dollars de fonds investis. Et ce fonds-là a grandi beaucoup depuis 2023, en grande partie à cause du marché. Alors, les finances en 2023 étaient de 725 000 qui étaient disponibles parce qu'on accepte de prendre jusqu'à 5 % du fonds à chaque année. Et puis, le 5 % maintenant représente encore plus à 755 000 $. Alors, le montant, la somme qui est disponible est maintenant beaucoup plus grand. Et évidemment, cet argent-là a pu augmenter les bourses qui sont faites au niveau du support mission et aussi ce 31 000 $ qu'on a vu dans le budget du Conseil régional qui est capable maintenant d'être payé. Alors, ça devient une source de revenus pour le Conseil régional pour couvrir le déficit qu'on avait imaginé. Alors, c'est un peu pour ça que cet argent-là est maintenant bien utilisé.
Okay. So are there questions then about the Finance and Extension Board? Because then what I can do just quickly is just go into the graphs here. And I have here now.
Les graphiques.
I have the Finance and Extension Board draft budget. Again, showing the 755,000 and where it goes. And both in English and French. And then I have for the region, I have the revenue sources and the applications here. It's showing, this is basically the budget, but showing it as a pie chart. And then the expenses, as you can see here, both English and French. And then what I also did is I put together the contingency reserve fund that back in 2019 was 240,000, and it increased as high as 500,000. And then we started drawing against it. Part of this was a large amount for the Rosemary Landby Fund that was taken out. And then the part here to cover the deficits. And now for 2025, we can see it remains pretty much level. So,
alors le dernier graphique était au sujet du fonds de réserve. Alors, les surplus qu'on avait année par année qui ont augmenté. Et à un moment donné, on a pris une partie de ça pour le fonds Rosemary Landby, qui a fait une partie entre 2022 et 2023. Et ensuite, ça s'est équilibré un peu entre-temps. Alors, on n'a pas dû se fier trop sur le fonds de réserve cette année à cause du fait qu'on prévoit maintenant juste un déficit de 20 000 $.
So I'm not sure how much of this do we want to present at the plenary meeting. We could do it in graph form, which might be the easiest thing, or I don't know if people want to get into the details of why we went down and then came back up. The whole point, I guess, is that we wanted to make sure that there was a break even for 2025.
I think there's a 15-minute time slot, so
Yeah,
whatever
exactly.
can fit into that time
I
frame.
know.
I think that if folks wanted more detail, they came tonight or can listen to the recording of this. So I don't think we need to get into as much detail.